Hello everybody, my name's Andy and I'm from Solent University, and today I'm going to give a short presentation aimed at EU students to give you a quick overview of the UK immigration system and which visa you will need to apply for in the UK. I should say the content of this presentation is aimed entirely at EU and EEA nationals. Therefore, if you are from outside the EU or EEA, certain parts of this presentation will not be relevant to you, and you may also find that there are additional steps and criteria which you would need to meet. So what we will cover today is who actually needs a visa to come to the UK, the new immigration system since we have left the EU, the admissions process and how you gain what's known as a CAS, the visa application process, and then some visa conditions you need to be aware about as well. So firstly, you need to work out if you need a visa to come to the UK. And this is split distinctly into two different groups of EU and EEA nationals. Anybody who's from the EU or EEA who entered the UK prior to the 31st of December 2020, that's the date when the UK officially left the EU and the transition period ended, and you are still living here now, you can apply for what is known as the EU settlement scheme. And the deadline to apply for the EU settlement scheme is the 30th of June 2021. I'm not going to go into detail about the EU settlement scheme now. If you do want to know more information, on the last slide of this presentation, there is a link to the EU settlement scheme page on our website, which has a full presentation about who's eligible, how to apply, and what evidence you need. I'm assuming most people watching this presentation will not have entered the UK yet, but this next bit also applies to anyone that entered after the 1st of January 2021 as well. And that's obviously after the UK had officially left the EU and the transition period had ended, and that means that you will be subject to immigration control when travelling to the UK, and that essentially means you need a visa to work, study or live in the UK. Now, there are two main types of visas that you can apply for if your main purpose of coming here is to study. Which visa you apply for is determined entirely by the length of your course. So if you're doing a course which is up to 6 months long, you can apply for what is known as a visit visa. This allows you to enter the UK, remain in the UK for up to 6 months from the day you entered, and permit study. There are some restrictions on this visa, however. For example, you can only study on a course that you can complete within that 6 months you're in the UK, and you would not be allowed to work while you're in the UK either. The visa is very easy to be granted. It's issued at the point of entry, which means you don't need to apply in advance. You will not gain or receive any type of visa stamp or visa evidence. Simply the 6 months starts from the day you enter the UK, and you must leave the UK within 6 months of that entry date. It is advisable, however, to travel with some evidence of your reasons for coming to the UK. For example, a letter from the university confirming that you have a place on the course and how long that course is. Evidence of how you will support yourself in the UK. For example, a bank statement, and if you know where you're going to be staying, some evidence of your accommodation as well. The main courses that this will be associated for at the university are some of our short courses, and we don't have too many of those here. So most of you listening to this presentation will probably be applying for courses which are longer than 6 months long. And they are the majority of our full-time courses, for example, our foundation years, undergraduate degrees and postgraduate qualifications. And if that's the case, you will need to apply for a long-term student visa, which is known under the student route and is called a student visa. To apply for a student visa, you will need what is known as an educational sponsor, and that educational sponsor needs to sponsor you, essentially support your application for a visa. Solent University is an educational sponsor who can sponsor you for your visa, and we will sponsor you once you hold what's known as an unconditional offer and have met all of our visa requirements. Sponsorship is in the form of a CAS, which stands for Confirmation of Acceptance for Study. And on the next slide, we'll run through the admissions process and how you get that CAS. I should also say at this point, all the information on the following slides are associated with the study visa and not the visit visa. So when you apply to the university, we will assess your application, and your application will be assessed on your personal statements, the qualifications you have previously undertaken, and any qualifications that you are currently undertaking, and any English language qualifications that you have as well. Once we have assessed your offer, if we make you an offer, it's likely to be a conditional or an unconditional offer. Unconditional means you have already met all the conditions of your offer and you are guaranteed a place on the course. A conditional offer, which is most likely for most students, means that you're guaranteed a place on your course provided you meet certain conditions. And those conditions are likely to be to pass the qualification that you are currently undertaking, and in some circumstances to pass an English language test as well. When we receive your application, our admissions team will also assess your immigration history. So this is to determine whether you need a visa to come and study in the UK or whether you already hold EU settled status. So what we talked about a couple of slides ago. The reason that we do that is so we can send you the correct information. Obviously, if you already hold EU settled status, we don't want to start sending you information about how to apply for a visa because it's not relevant. And likewise, if you don't hold EU settled status, we want to make sure we are sending you information about how to apply for your visa so you're fully prepared and ready to apply when you need to. So I mentioned on the last slide you would need a CAS to apply for your visa, and the university will issue you with a CAS as soon as you hold an unconditional offer. You have passed an immigration and study limit check, and that's not really anything to be concerned about at the moment because it won't really affect EU nationals. You've paid a deposit of 50% towards your tuition fees as well. And there are some exceptions to that. The two main ones being if you are going to be receiving a government sponsored loan or if you are going to be a government sponsored student. And in both of those scenarios, we would just ask for evidence that you've been granted that sponsorship or that loan prior to issuing the CAS. It's also worth noting at this point that if you were studying below degree level, now below degree level is any qualification that you'll be gaining, which is at RQF 5 or below. So the qualifications at the university would be things like the foundation year or HNC or HND, and then you are required to have what is known as a CELT, which stands for Secure English Language Tests. And the most common Secure English Language Test is an IELTS certificate. And that IELTS certificate would need to be taken at a secure test centre as approved by the Home Office. And if you do require that CELT, more information will be sent out to you when an offer is made, and that condition will also be attached to your offer. If you're studying above degree level, which is undergraduate degree or postgraduate qualification, the university can choose how we assess your English language. And that means that we might be able to use a qualification that you've already taken, perhaps a high school leaving certificate, or it might mean that you still need to do an official English language test. Okay, so the visa application process. This is very straightforward for an EU national. Once you've been issued with your CAS, you will need to complete the visa application form at the gov.uk website. Should be very straightforward to complete. It's mainly completing personal details and also information which is included on the CAS already. Once you submit your visa application online, you will then need to provide what's known as your biometrics and any supporting documents. And there's two ways that you can do this. The first way described here in 3A is via an app. So you download an app to your phone and then you'll be able to submit a picture of yourself and also a photo or scan of any of the required documents that you need. And it's likely that the only required document you will need is your passport. So it would just be a scan or photo of the photo page of your passport. You can only use the app if you have a biometrics passport. So it's got one of those symbols on the front and one where you're allowed to use an e-gate when you travel through airports. And you have a smartphone that has NFC. And my understanding is most modern day smartphones have this feature now. If you apply via the app, when your visa is granted, you won't be issued with any physical visa or physical stamp in your passport. Instead, you will receive what's known as a secure digital status. And we'll touch on that in a couple of slides' time. One thing to note is the passport that you use to apply for your visa must be the same as the passport that you travel with. So it's worth making sure before you submit your application that your passport has plenty of time, and we would advise that you have at least 6 months on your passport from the date that you plan to travel. Option 2, if you're unable to use the app for any reason, is that you need to visit a visa application centre. At that visa application centre, they will take your passport and they will also take copies of any of the required documents that you're required to submit. Your visa will then be assessed, and when it's issued, you will receive an entry stamp or an entry vignette in your passport. And then once you enter the UK, you will be able to collect a biometrics residence permit, which will then be your physical visa. And the biometrics resident permit appears on that screen. I would really strongly advise that you use the app because it's likely that visa application centres will be kind of few and far between. And then might find that there's only one in your country and you would have to travel a bit of a distance to get there. It also means that you can retain your passport, and the fact that you have a secure digital status instead of a physical visa means that it's impossible for you to lose your visa as well. Okay, so what documents will you need when you apply for your visa? Well, as the EU and EEA national, you are regarded by the UK Home Office as low risk. And this means that the only documentation you should need is a CAS and your passport. And what I've done here in purple is list all the documentation that you would need if you were not a low risk national. Now, it should highlight at this stage that the Home Office can ask for any of this documentation as part of the visa application process. However, this is generally unlikely, and it's usually only asked if you have a criminal record. The first thing that you would need to submit if you weren't a low risk national is financial evidence. And this would need to show that you have enough money to pay for the first year of your course and your living costs for the first year of your course as well. And that usually works out around £20,000. So you'd need to have a bank account with £20,000 in. You would also need to submit your academic qualifications and evidence of your knowledge of English as well. There could also be some additional documentation which you would need to submit if you're from outside the EU. So that could be evidence of a relationship to your parent if they're financing your studies, for example, a birth certificate. A tuberculosis test, EU nationals are completely exempt from that. An ATAS certificate, which EU nationals are exempt from, and translations of any documents that aren't in English. So the point of that slide is mainly to highlight how straightforward we've kind of made the visa application process for EU and EEA nationals in terms of the documentation evidence that you will need to initially submit with your application. Okay, so just some general information on fees, travel and your visa. So the visa application fee to apply in the UK is £348. On top of that, you will also need to pay what is known as the immigration health surcharge. Now, this is a varied cost. It's charged at £470 per year of your visa. So obviously it's going to depend on the length of your course, how much you need to pay. But if you're studying a 3-year undergraduate degree, you need to budget for £470 for each one of those years, and obviously the £348 to apply for your visa. So that's going to be quite a substantial cost. So you need to have kind of £1,700 to £2,000 ready to be able to pay for that at the time you apply. The length of your visa will be linked to the length of your course, but your visa will begin 1 month before your course start date, and it will end usually 4 months after the end date of your course. That's provided that your course is at least a year long. Obviously, the first month will enable you to travel to the UK, get yourself settled before your course begins, and the 4 months at the end enables you to work, sort yourself out to leave the UK, travel around the UK, possibly look for a job, or also consider how to move into a different immigration category if you wish to remain. I mentioned a couple of slides ago about the secure digital status you get if you apply via the app. What this means is once your visa is granted, you will get access to an online portal. When you log into that portal, it will tell you what your immigration status is, so what type of visa you hold, the date it expires, and also any conditions attached to that visa. And the most likely condition that you will have attached to that visa is a work condition. You will also be able to generate what is known as a share code on that online portal page, and this share code you can give to other people to prove your immigration status in the UK. For example, it's likely you will need to provide that share code to the university when you come to enrol, so we know that you've got the immigration rights to study, and you can also provide that to employers as well if you wanted to work in the UK to prove that you have the right to work. The last slide is just to touch on visa conditions. So once your visa is granted, if you wish to work in the UK, there are some restrictions on work while you hold a visa. So you would be allowed to work up to 20 hours a week during term time if you're on a degree level study or above, so an undergraduate degree or postgraduate qualification. And if you're studying below degree level, so foundation year or HNC, HND, it's limited to 10 hours per week during term time. And then all students would be able to work full-time in vacation periods, so Christmas, Easter, and the summer, if that's applicable for your course, on work placements that are an approved part of your course, and in that 4-month wrap-up period at the end of your visa as well. And it's worth noting there are some restrictions on the type of employment that you can do. The main ones that you're probably interested in are you can't be self-employed, you can't set up your own business, and there are also some restrictions around not being able to be employed as a professional sports person or sports coach. And the last point to note on visa conditions is your sponsorship for the visa is determined by the fact that you are studying with us. So if for any reason after you've joined the course you stop studying, so you withdraw or you suspend your studies for a period of time, we would then withdraw sponsorship for your visa, and that would mean the Home Office would cancel your visa and then you'd be required to leave the UK. So that's the end of the presentation, so hopefully you found that useful. If you do want to find out some more information, I point you in the direction of our website and the Visa and Immigration page. I mentioned at the start about the EU settlement scheme, and if you do need further guidance on that, again, there's a link to our webpage which has a presentation, and also the UKISA website is really useful for information for students about how they apply for your visa.